Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro accused the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, of responding to the interests of the US government and its allies against the countries of the Global South. Tropical storm Flossie has strengthened into a Category 1 hurricane off Mexico's southwestern Pacific coast. And in Palestine, Israeli forces opened fire on civilians waiting for food near an aid distribution center of the US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro accused Monday the UN High Commissioner for the Human Rights, Volker Turk, of responding to the interests of the US government and its allies against the countries of the Global South. During his weekly television program, Maduro also accused the UN official of ignoring the kidnapping of 252 Venezuelans by the government of El Salvador, of 18 children by Washington, and the murder of innocent civilians in Palestine. The Bolivarian head of state also rejected the report issued by UN office about alleged violations of human rights in Venezuela and informed that an international campaign is underway to demand Turk's resignation.
On the history, and that is going to prevail for the future.
The Attorney General has hit the nail on the head because he has been denouncing the absolute degradation of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, an office that belongs to the United Nations system and which has been totally kidnapped, tied up, politicized and biased by Mr. Volker Turk, who responds to the interests of Washington and the European elites against the peoples of the Global South, against the independent countries, and that he has reached the point of ignoring our specific denunciation that I personally talked to him about of the kidnapping of 252 Venezuelans, the kidnapping of 18 Venezuelan boys and girls in the United States. And he also completely ignores the persecution and kidnapping of thousands of migrants in the United States. But what is worse, every day he ignores the murder of boys, girls, men and women in Palestine, the bombing of Lebanon and Syria, the murder of innocent people in the world. Also for him, those things do not exist. The only thing that exists for him is the script written and given to him by the State Department in Washington.
In reference to the Venezuelan children kidnapped by the United States in its territory, President Maduro reassured that the Bolivarian government will bring them back to their homeland and stressed that the issue was not political or religious, but humane.
We're going to recover them. We are defending a sacred cause. It is not a matter of political ideas, not religious ideas. This has one single color, the color of humanity.
Also in this context, President Nicolás Maduro demanded that Volker Turk and the High Commissioner for International Justice respect the right to family unity of the 18 kidnapped children.
And I may ask the International Court of Justice, and I ask this question to Volker Turk: who are having the right before these little girls and boys in Venezuela? The rights of the parents upon their children are sacred. A boy, not a girl, can't be forced separated from their families. It is very sacred, and it has legal rights. What's the legality in the United States?
And Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro reported the arrest of several foreign terrorists linked to the international far-right and U.S. imperialism. Also during his weekly program, Con Maduro Más, the president announced that Interior, Justice and Peace Minister Diosdado Cabello will provide further details about these arrests. President Maduro also denounced that destabilization plans are being carried out from Colombia and other nations, which have been neutralized by the joint action of the Bolivarian armed forces and the organized people. The Venezuelan head of state emphasized that the nation's peace will not be violated and that constant vigilance will be maintained against any threat. And with less than a month to go before the municipal elections in Venezuela, 15,791 candidates will participate in the electoral day to choose mayors and councillors. More details with our colleague Leonardo Rieta.
El chavismo se prepara para disputar una nueva
The
elección.
chavismo prepares to contest a new election in the country. The Great Patriotic Poll is made up of 13 of the 36 organizations that will participate in the elections. In Miranda State, in the center of the country, the 2025 Plus campaign command was sworn in. It is necessary to win. That is the only thing I can tell you. All together, united, the Great Patriotic Poll in alliance. It is a way of showing that we are revolutionaries and we participate.
Esta será la elección número 33 en los
This will be the 33 election in the last 26 years. Chavismo has won 30 times, and party members highlight the gender parity among the candidates of the Great Patriotic Poll. We are in this axis and more in Zamora with 51% women and 49% men participating, women at the forefront, women with their intellect. We are in high spirits and we are calling on all Venezuelans to once again exercise this right to work and continue in democracy. We are ready for the fight and for victory.
La oposición dividida en varias coaliciones.
The opposition, divided into several coalitions, will go to the polls. 23 opposition parties have confirmed their participation and are inviting citizens to exercise their right to vote. If there is any sector that still believes that abstention is any kind of solution, let me tell you that it is doing great harm to the citizens.
Los venezolanos destacan la
Venezuelans emphasize the importance of participating in electoral processes. I have always said that if there is democracy, there is freedom, and if we have to choose the path of good and not the path of war or enter into conflict with ourselves.
El 27 de julio los ciudadanos
On July
mayores
27, citizens over the age of 18 will be able to cast their votes. More than 15,000 polling stations have been set up by the electoral authorities.
En la Cámara de Marcos da Silva, Leonardo Urrieta, teleSUR, Venezuela.
And the Venezuelan government congratulated on Tuesday the People's Republic of China and its President Xi Jinping on the 104th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party, which it addressed as a political organization of revolutionary struggle that has tirelessly striven for the Chinese people to achieve high levels of prosperity and development. In an official statement, Caracas highlighted how the historic work of the Communist Party of China for the growth of the great Asian nation has transcended its borders, thanks to the implementation of the model of socialist and sovereign democracy that has liberated millions of people from poverty based on the principles of equity and justice. In addition, the government of Venezuela reiterated its full determination to strengthen the strategic partnership with the government of China in order to build a more prosperous future for both nations. Now we have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. I'm going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the United States, a marathon voting session on President Donald Trump's polemic domestic policy bill is underway in the Senate after a weekend of negotiations and delays. This bill, called the One Big Beautiful Bill, would add $3.3 trillion to the public debt within 10 years, according to the Congressional Budget Office, a higher estimate than the $2.4 trillion in the version that passed the lower house on May 22nd. The polemic bill includes tax and government spending cuts and increased funding for defense and immigration enforcement. In this sense, several lawmakers question cuts to social programs such as Medicaid or food stamps because the CBO foresees 12 million people losing their health insurance by 2034 with the initiative, which would cut $1.1 trillion in public health policies.
We had tremendous unity. There's a lot of love in the room.
And in this context, controversy escalated this week following the release of the 940-page draft now before the Senate, which includes more cuts than those passed by the House, particularly in social programs and tax incentives for wind and solar energy and electric vehicles. This controversial bill has sparked protests against cuts in food aid and healthcare at the U.S. Capitol, with 38 arrests as of Monday, according to police. The arrests occurred at two locations inside the Capitol Rotunda and at an intersection near the Capitol. The detainees were charged with crowding, obstruction, and discomfort. The Mexican Senate approved the new telecommunications law, which prohibits the broadcasting of foreign government propaganda, allows the commercialization of advertising space in community radio stations, and guarantees internet access to those who live in marginalized areas. Antonio Aranda with the following report.
El Senado de la República aprobó la expedición de una nueva ley.
The Senate of the Republic approved the enactment of a new law on telecommunications and broadcasting for Mexico.
Quienes estén por la afirmativa, favor de levantar la mano. Gracias. Quienes estén por la negativa, favor de levantar la mano. Quienes se abstengan, favor de levantar la mano.
Los legisladores oficialistas del partido Morena.
Legislators from the ruling party pointed out that this reform leaves behind a commercial telecommunications model and paves the way for a social approach.
En materia de radiodifusión, la ley impulsa como ninguna otra legislación.
In the field of broadcasting, the law promotes non-profit social community indigenous and African Mexican media like no other previous legislation has done. Preventing pretending and also giving them financial viability that balances the commercial and market model that has prevailed for decades.
Y comercial que ha imperado por largas décadas.
La nueva ley de telecomunicaciones.
The new telecommunications law prevents foreign governments from spreading propaganda in the country, such as Donald Trump's advertisements against Mexican migrants.
If you are considering entering America illegally, don't even think about it.
Los senadores de oposición rechazaron la nueva ley.
Opposition senators rejected the new telecommunications law, considering it excessive in its powers.
Con el pretexto de prohibir los spots,
under the pretext of banning commercials and foreign propaganda, they were censoring news programs from international networks, and they also said that we were lying.
Y también dijeron que estábamos mintiendo.
Otros legisladores consideraron.
Other legislators believed that the new telecommunications law will provide more development opportunities for the population.
Esta ley parte de una premisa irrefutable.
This law is based on an irrefutable premise. Those who do not have access to the internet today are excluded from education, they are excluded from work, they are excluded from healthcare. They are even excluded from justice, but above all, those who do not have access to the internet lose a great opportunity for social mobility.
Pierde una gran oportunidad de movilidad social.
El gobierno de México ha destacado que este nuevo marco jurídico.
The Mexican government has emphasized that this new legal framework will give 16 million people access to high-quality internet and has denied that there is any censorship.
Todo lo que integra el ejercicio de la libertad.
Everything that is part of the exercise of freedom, which is contrary to censorship, is access to the internet. This law seeks to democratize access to guarantee that many more millions of Mexicans have access to this mechanism. It is a law that is precisely aimed at expanding the range of people who can exercise their right in this case via the internet, but no, there's no censorship, there never has been and there never will be.
Pero no hay ninguna censura, nunca la hubo y no la habrá jamás.
Senadores eliminaron de la ley en
Senators removed from the telecommunications law the possibility of temporarily blocking digital platforms in order to prevent censorship.
Censura. Antonio Aranda, TeleSUR, Ciudad de México.
And Tropical Storm Flossie has strengthened into a Category 1 hurricane off Mexico's southwestern Pacific coast. The hurricane has maximum sustained winds of 120 kilometers per hour and is located about 280 kilometers south of Manzanillo, moving west-northwest at 17 kilometers per hour. Flossie is expected to skirt the coast of several days, bringing heavy rainfall up to 150 millimeters to parts of Guerrero, Michoacán, Colima, and Jalisco, with the risk of life-threatening flooding and mudslides, especially in mountainous areas. The Mexican government has issued a tropical storm warning along the southwestern coastline from Punta San Telmo to Playa Perula, with a tropical storm watch in effect from Zihuatanejo to Cabo Corrientes, signaling possible tropical storm conditions within 48 hours. And on Monday, Chile and Argentina became the coldest countries in the world due to a powerful polar anticyclone. According to the Chilean Meteorological Directorate and the Argentine National Meteorological Service, minimum temperatures below zero were recorded in several regions, reaching as low as -20 degrees Celsius in areas of Patagonia and the mountain range. In Argentina, cities such as Esquel and Chubut recorded temperatures below 17 degrees, while Rio Negro reached -20 degrees. On the Chilean side, areas such as Coyhaique recorded temperatures of -17 and even -19 degrees, as was the case in Balmaceda in the far south of the country. Now we have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most events. Found your break, and go away. Welcome back. Argentina's President Javier Milei continues to undermine the public health system. The government's attempts to eliminate public health care are being met with resistance from hospital workers themselves, such as those at the Garrahan Pediatric Hospital. Let's see.
The president's plan to destroy public health care continues unabated. Among those affected is the Garrahan Pediatric Hospital, the largest in Argentina and one of the largest in Latin America. It treats patients from all over the country with the most complex pathologies, but as the Argentine government insists on defunding it, the staff at Garrahan Hospital insists on continuing to treat its young patients. We are in the midst of a plan of action. We define it as a plan of action because we understand that we must oppose the government's resistance with an extensive fight. In the midst of this conflict are the patients. Patients and their families, like us workers, they experience this tension, this anguish, and this urgent need for the conflict to be resolved in the hospital because it is already having an impact on care, and families are very sensitive to this. Last year, more than 100 transplants were performed at Garrahan Hospital, including liver, kidney, and heart transplants. But who are the patients at Garrahan Public Hospital? In the same room, there is a patient whose family has great purchasing power and has the best health insurance in Argentina, and he is lying next to a kid from other part of the country who doesn't have health insurance. And how does the government resolve staff complaints? It is a government that has a methodology of ignoring complaints and responding to legitimate complaints with insults. Therefore, it generated more anger within the hospital. The government seems to fail to understand that Garrahan ends up saving almost all lives. Here we treat all diseases. The most severe ones, the rarest ones, those that cannot be diagnosed even in private clinics of excellence. Finally, through the protests of the staff, the workers at Garrahan Hospital, like the staff at almost all public hospitals, are trying to stop what is already happening. There is a shortage of professionals, social workers, nurses, and kindergarten teachers. And that has an impact. Our own colleagues are leaving. They are leaving because they have to quit and find another job. This didn't happen before, but it is happening now.
Desde Buenos Aires para teleSUR, Fabián Restivo.
And in Panama, shortly before the start of the second period of ordinary sessions at the National Assembly, access to the Justo Arosemena Palace was once again surrounded by perimeter fences, a condemned practice that had been discontinued in previous legislatures. The return of the metal fences has generated negative reactions on Monday when deputies from various benches, including Grace Hernandez and Ernesto Cedeño of the Otro Camino movement, as well as independent legislator Betseray Richards, spoke out against the measure. President of the legislative body, Dana Castañeda, of the ruling party Realizando Metas, also expressed her disagreement, assuring the fences were not requested by the legislature. The Assembly begins a new legislative period on Tuesday amid continued actions against Law 462, which reformed the Social Security Fund. On Tuesday, the leaders of the Luhansk People's Republic, Leonid Pasechnik, confirmed that the Russian armed forces had seized control of the entire area. The regional head's confirmation has been backed up by domestic media, who have reiterated that 100% of the republic is now free of Ukrainian military units. Pashenko explained that the offensive in the Donbas region has intensified since August 6, 2024, when Ukrainian forces invaded the Kursk region. In March of this year, Russian President Vladimir Putin reported that Russian forces control 99% of the territory. On Tuesday, following the elimination of dozens of Ukrainian soldiers in the area, it was confirmed that Russia now has full control of Luhansk. Palestine on Tuesday morning, Israeli forces opened fire on civilians waiting for food near an aid distribution center of the U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Local and medical sources confirmed that at least 7 people were killed and 15 others injured while waiting for food after Israeli forces opened fire on a crowd seeking aid near the Netzarim corridor in central Gaza. Israeli mass killings of aid seekers near GHF aid centers have become a grim daily reality and chaotic scenes. It is important to note that since the GHF began operations on May 27th in Gaza, more than 588 seekers have been killed and more than 4,216 injured, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. And clashes broke out in Istanbul on Monday after satirical magazine Leman published a cartoon depicting the Prophet Muhammad. The unrest erupted on the city's busy Istiklal Street, a popular destination for both locals and tourists, after crowds gathered outside the magazine's offices, some reportedly throwing stones and attempting to break in. The incident followed an order from Istanbul's chief prosecutor to arrest Leman's editors on grounds of publicly insulting religious values. Authorities swiftly detained the magazine's cartoonist and senior staff, while government officials condemned the publication, emphasizing that freedom of expression does not extend to insulting religious beliefs. The protests caused temporary disruptions in the area, but city officials reported no major injuries or lasting impact on tourism. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.